What's up, YouTube? MrLlamaSC here, and today we're going to watch the Why Diablo 2 Players Hate Diablo 4 video that Xmas has posted. We'll see if we agree with it. We'll see if he's got some other opinions that I just don't think are right at all. I don't know. I haven't seen any of it before. I know that Asmon, of course, reacted to it, and everybody was really all over it, and they're like, what do you think? What do you think? So we'll take a look and see what we say, and yeah. Check it out. That's a nice intro. First off, props to X for having a dope, like, introduction, man. That's way cooler than... I mean, I like mine as well, but that's sick.
Diablo 4 is now a spin-off version of Diablo 3, Path of Exile, and World of Warcraft.
Also Lost Ark, I would say.
The RNG random number generator game mechanics that made Diablo 2 the greatest game of all time through randomized loot, dungeons, monster spawns, and even skill damage ability gave you a new experience every time you logged on to the game and has given the player base infinite replay value for 20 years. Diablo 4 has now evolved into a repetitive gameplay style that gives you the same experience over and over. That is less rewarding and is for the casual player base and MMORPG based game mechanics.
I mean, I do think that there's totally a point right there. Like, yeah, they've even stated that they want the game to be more for everybody, right? Like, I don't think casual is an insult. Some people think so. Can I turn it up? He's just talking really quietly. I'll try and turn it up. That's like the max I can make it. You know, like, that is true. They said they wanted the game to be more casual. Again, they're trying to also appeal to PC and console players. They want to have couch co-op, all of this. Right? Like, that just is naturally a little bit more of a casual style game. I will agree or state my opinion, which is when you go that way and you do the whole, like, it's casual, everything, try and make it for everybody, a lot of times you lose a little bit of identity in some ways. And a lot of things that make games great in specific ways, when you try and make it for everybody, you have to, like, nerf it down some, right? If that makes sense. Sorry, we'll continue.
Now, I've been considered one of the most controversial Diablo 2 content creators for my critical opinions.
Get it, X.
And somewhat of an outcast because of them. 98% of Diablo
I'm
content
right there.
creators are partnered with Blizzard. And this is probably why you have never seen me use the hashtag Diablo partner. I've always expressed myself to the fullest and never tried to gain the approval of everybody, which is an impossible task when fully being yourself. The game is my love and passion, though. I will be as old as Decker King going on a rant about game mechanics.
Let's go.
And just my overall love for the game. All of my opinions come from a place of love, and I want Diablo to be in the spotlight like it should have been for the past 20 years. So let's talk about how the Diablo 4 game mechanics work.
So, I mean, you know, right there, I'll definitely say, like, if anybody knows me, they know that I speak my honest thoughts on it. And a lot of people hate me for, you know, saying, oh, hey, I don't think this is good. I dislike this. Like, I've been very openly critical about a lot of things in Diablo 4, despite being a Diablo partner. Blizzard doesn't pay me to be a Diablo partner. You know, there's none of that. Obviously, there's, you know, we talk and we work together in whatever things. They'll say, hey, you know, here's the, like, review build. You can get in this and do some stuff there and give some feedback. So, like, I do have, you know, extra access from it. But I'm also very open and honest about it. And they're, at least for now, still fully accepting and understanding of that. I don't feel like I'm pulling my punches. I feel like I very much tell it like it is, and sometimes it's a little harsh. But I also say things that I think will try and improve it in the best way, right? And even if it's something like, I don't like the font right now. I really think you guys should change the font. It's breaking my immersion every time I open up the inventory and stuff. And then they change the font. And obviously other people were saying it as well. But, like, a lot of people were like, oh, Llama, that's like such a little nitpicky thing. You just want to hate the game, blah, blah, blah. But now the font is better. Like, the game looks better because the font is better. It improves the game. So, you know, I do feel like in, you know, a lot of those ways, I am trying to be very honest and vocal about stuff because I do love Diablo. I do want them to make the best Diablo game. And if I think something looks dumb, like the UI, then I'll say, I really don't like this UI. I think it's dumb. If I think something looks really cool, I'll say it looks really cool. Like, and my opinion will change as well as I play things and explore more and learn more. But yeah, I think, you know, Blizzard understands that. And that's a nice thing that I will say about working with them is they don't sit there, and I've never got a message from them that's like, hey, you need to like be nicer about the game, or, you know, any like threat or any whatever piece of it.
I will explain to you how Diablo 4 has now evolved into a repetitive experience from a Diablo 2 player perspective, explaining the core game mechanics that are important to understand for the long-term success of Diablo 4 or any Diablo game. Diablo's unique gameplay style and replay value is possible through the term RNG, the random number generator. This was the main core revolutionary game mechanic of Diablo 2. This core value has been exiled from the Diablo
I mean, I'm sure RNG existed elsewhere as well, but
franchise since the release of Diablo 3, and now abandoned by Diablo 4. Now, you may have asked yourself, what is it? What is it about Diablo 2 that made that game the greatest game of all time? Why did I spend 20 years playing this game and not others? With my studies of quantum physics and my spiritual journey, I realized 95% of our brain's thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, perceptions, and more function like an automatic unconscious computer program.
This is good.
Your perceptions of the real world and the gaming world are a set of unconscious programs. This theory, along with the misunderstanding of Diablo's core game mechanics, were the real reason why you had these beliefs about Diablo 2 being the greatest game of all time, which I will explain in further detail later on. Chris Wilson, the creator of Path of Exile, studied these theories as well about Diablo 2 when he was creating Path of Exile.
I mean, Chris Wilson was a big D2 fan for sure, and I do believe he has a lot of great understanding of all the great mechanics with it.
Chris knew Diablo 2 was the greatest game of all time, and he studied the game to its core. Every time you log on to Diablo 2, you have a new experience because of the RNG mechanics. Every moment is different. It is impossible to have the same experience you had before every time you log on to the game. When you enter the world, the dungeons are randomized, along with the types of monsters that spawn, the loot that drops, the map layouts, and even your skill damage ability. Now, when you play Diablo 2, as I said, 95% of your perceptions of the world are unconscious. You unconsciously never knew exactly why Diablo 2 was the greatest game of all time, and these core game mechanics pass right by your awareness. This concept of the Diablo world had you constantly addicted to the rush of wanting new experiences. You just never realized it this whole time. The loot being randomized gave you a sense of overwhelming accomplishment when you found something like such as a high rune. This extreme rarity combined with the reward of extreme power left the player feeling like they were truly rewarded for their effort. The reason why Diablo 2 players...
I mean, he is not wrong at all right there. Right? Like, I mean, maybe in a couple places, but he captures the overall essence and core of it is that the randomization within Diablo 2 is a core component of why the game is so fantastic. Whether that is the randomized dungeons, the randomized monsters within, and the unique identity of everything, I think is what gives it the RNG, that like extra boost. Because right, anybody can have RNG. Diablo 4 has RNG on what items you drop and the monsters and whatever stuff, right? Like, obviously RNG exists in all of these games. But what Diablo 2 does is they give such identity to the various pieces of RNG that you gain a new experience from all the different things you drop. You gain a new experience from all the different monster types that there are. And that's one of those pieces that I really have felt like I don't see in a lot of modern games now, right? Like, when I go into a map and it spawns with souls, death knights, dolls, versus a map that spawns with skelly mages, unravelers, and, you know, whatever, vampire lords, versus the map that spawns with frozen creepers, right? Like, whatever that piece is, I've yet to find a game where I really feel like the monster matters so much. Right? What are you talking about, Karma? And so that's something that I do think, you know, is really, really well done within Diablo 2. Now, Diablo 2 has its own issues and you know, pieces to discuss later on and all of that. That's, you know, not the piece to bring up that I'm bringing up in this current moment, right? I'm not saying it's perfect in every way. But I do feel like monster identity, item identity, build identity, these are things that really, really are so heavily played in this game, right? And so I do think Diablo 2 does a fantastic job about that. I care about every single, you know, monster that spawns. I care about the different items that drop. I care about just so many RNG pieces within Diablo 2 that in other games I haven't had the same amount of care, right? It's just, you get it and you're like, all right, cool, whatever. But then you just swap it on, bigger number, more damage later, whatever, and just kind of, you know, you just get into that, like, cycle more. So I do think he hits a really good point there about, you know, the RNG within Diablo 2. It's not just because it has RNG, but the way that they implement it really is high class.
Players won't like Diablo 4 is because it doesn't have these core game mechanics of the RNG. In Diablo 4, the world is almost always the same with no RNG. The dungeons are the same repetitive experience over and over again. Fetch a key, run to the left, run to the right, and open a door. The monster spawns are somewhat randomized, however, mostly the same. So now let's talk about...
And he does have some point there. I do think they improved the dungeons a lot between the beta and the server slam. That was also something I was highly critical of, and a lot of people were, and they came down and they made them a little bit better. They're kind of more open. There's more stuff to do within them because it really was very repetitive. That being said, we'll still have to see. That's just one of those pieces we'll have to see when we get there later on, is what will be improved, or you know, will it just be the same piece all the way through with all of that? Because, you know, that's
why
like...
do D2 players hate D4? Why not? You gotta hate something sometime.
There you go.
D4 gets the nod.
And like, you know, in Diablo 2, you'd get to the end and now you're just doing like bail runs and stuff, right? And I'll admit, like, bail runs eventually would get tedious and tiresome for me as well. I loved when they implemented terror zones. I think that was a huge improvement because now it's putting you everywhere back in the game, which is super awesome. And so that's great, right? So I thought that was a big improvement over the repetitive bail running that existed before. That being said, yeah, he's saying D4 doesn't have a lot of RNG in the world. I mean, the overworld is going to be the same map, so really the only RNG would be the dungeons, but I'm not exactly certain how much the dungeons will shift and adjust. Like, I know when you go in and out and start a dungeon over again, it will be a different dungeon, but I do have the question around that. And again, that's just a piece that we will have to see. I don't think we can make the statement yet, right? Because, and this is like the best thing the best way I can say it. Running 1,000 Mephisto runs in Diablo 2 is super fun. But running 1,000 runs of something in another game a lot of times isn't fun. And it's hard to always quantify it in an exact thing, which is, it's great that he studied quantum mechanics to help us figure this out. No, I'm just kidding. But the idea overall is repetition in ARPGs is a good thing. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Repetition in ARPGs, in RPGs, is a thing. Like, that is a core piece of RPGs. Doing the same thing over and over again. So that is not the issue. The issue is the repetition fun or not? And that can sometimes be harder to quantify. I think within Diablo 2, what can make it fun is loot is so good in Diablo 2 that the items, the pull, the gamble, slot machine every time you kill Mephisto, whatever, just feels so great. And so it doesn't matter. You're like, I don't even care that I'm doing this repetition, because if I'm sitting there at the slot machine and I'm just pulling that, lever over and over again, I'm also having a great time. It's the hope that you get inside every time. So a lot of that comes from the loot within Diablo 2. But yeah, RuneScape has tons of repetition. Diablo 2 has lots of repetition. All of these RPGs have lots of repetition. But the question, of course, just is it fun to do this repetition or not, right? Is that as fun as doing greater rifts over and over again? Is that as fun as chopping down a tree to get wood? Whatever it is, there's always this repetition, but it's just, is it meaningful and is it fun? And so I feel like Diablo 2 really does a great job at capturing the fun of repetition. It's sometimes hard to exactly, like I said, quantify what and why that exactly is, but it's just fun to do this. That's my opinion. Will the dungeons in Diablo 4 be fun to repeat over and over and over again? That, I think, is the make or break almost for me with Diablo 4. When I get to the end game and we're doing the nightmare dungeons, because that's probably going to be the main core loop, right? And I'm doing these dungeons over and over again, will it be fun or will it not? If it's fun, I think D4 will have a lot of success. If it gets repetitive in a boring way and I feel like I'm just doing it as a chore because I have to do it or whatever, then I won't be having as much fun doing that. And I think a lot of that goes back to loot within the game, which is why it'll be really important to see what is the loot in the end stages. Now, of course, we have the whole legendary aspects and stuff that you can go after, so that could be fun, trying to farm and get the right legendary aspects. All of this, hard to tell. Though no mention of nostalgia. I don't actually think nostalgia is a big player in it, despite what people say. It's kind of a cheap, easy cop-out that someone can throw out. When in actuality, nostalgia a lot of times I don't think really captures the true feeling of it. Sure, nostalgia exists. There's many games that, when I went and played GoldenEye on the N64 again, I was like, oh my gosh, this game is not playing great. But nostalgia is keeping me having fun playing the game. But I could recognize it had a lot of issues. But there's a lot of older games. Dungeon Siege is my best example because I just played it recently and it was fantastic. I never played Dungeon Siege growing up. At all. But I picked up Dungeon Siege and it didn't look great. And it had some issues with its UI and with its, how the stuff worked. But I fell in love with the game, and I'm like, wow, Dungeon Siege is an amazing game. And I never played it before. There was no nostalgia to bring me back to it. There was none of that. I had to struggle through some of the stupid parts of it.
Subbing is super fun. Everyone with Amazon
That's
Prime
true.
should do it monthly.
But I was just like, oh my gosh. The game is just, you can just feel the game. It's created so well. And, you know, that to me is, there's just a lot of really fun older games. There's some fun newer games, but there's just fun within games that, you know, you just go and find. And I think the systems of a lot of the older games work better there. Anyways, let's continue here.
Soulbound items, no trading, and the itemization. So 98% of the item drops are for your class and gives you no sense of accomplishment.
This is true. I hate the fact that like everything is class based now. And so it's just like these boots are only worn by rogues. And they only do things for rogues and stuff. I do think that's like, the itemization I think has some to be desired within the game.
This term is called personal loot, the
Right.
same repetitive experience. This is a spin-off concept from World of Warcraft instance loot, where the loot drops are mostly the same from bosses and become soulbound. This has removed the idea of item drops being unique, special, and rewarding. This is to appeal to...
Yeah, it's called smart loot. Personal loot is when the loot that drops only you can pick up, as opposed to like Diablo 2 where it's just a frenzy.
Casual players. Also the World of Warcraft player base because it has a massive following, and they like the concept of instance loot. They don't like RNG based item drops. This gets them interested in the game and makes Blizzard more money from a wider audience. Also, the loot drops were...
I think smart loot does play better into a more casual player base, because it's not like you have, you know, you're not putting bows on a paladin and doing crazy things like this and all of that. It's just like it gets you the stuff that your character uses, you know, and that's the thing. Again, I just like smart loot. It has a lot of implications beyond just the idea of smart loot. I think if they put a toggle in, that would honestly be the best thing ever. Put a toggle that says you can turn smart loot on or off. But, again, the problem is every class has... This class can only wear these boots, these gloves, this helmet, all of that, right? It's not 100% like that, but there's a lot of items that only specifically go on each class. So even if I were to turn off smart loot, my barbarian's never going to be able to hold a bow. And to me, I think that sucks a little. Again, for the general casual playthrough, sure. Like, most people are never going to put a bow on a barbarian. They're going to just use the 4 weapons of the mace and the whatever, and that's it. And that's just going to be that. But for the kid in me that just wants to experiment and just make all sorts of just stupid little things like I did as a kid, where I had, you know, my sorceress running around with a 2-handed maul and trying to hit things with enchants, and it was a nightmare and whatever, you know, just like dumb stuff. Like it saddens me a little bit. So I always dislike the idea of there just being, you know, smart loot and everything so locked down to each individual kind of character. But yeah, it also ruins the idea of dropping something amazing and going, oh, I want to make a sorceress with this. Now, not all loot is smart loot. It's like 90% or 95%. So you will have a 5% chance to drop something that you could then
Mr.
go,
Llama,
I want to make another
MrLlamaSC.
character with this. But yeah, smart loot, I don't like.
were increased for the beta. However, I still think Blizzard is going to have legendaries dropping like Rao runes, just to benefit the casual player base. And also for casual players who don't play the game at an end game level.
Now, this is a question that I simply do have, which is what will be that legendary drop rate? Thank you, Fire. Will it be you get a legendary, you know, once every couple of runs? Or is it going to be kind of the D3 style, and not even just for the legendary, but the D3 style of go out, do a dungeon, fill up my entire loot, like my entire inventory, go home, salvage it all, rinse and repeat, just like overloaded on all of that. I really hope that they keep it down, right? I really hope that they keep it down, that I'm not just flooded with legendaries and flooded with, all these rares that I'm just salvaging and all this and all of that. That, I think, as well, will be an important piece. Yeah, uniques are not legendaries. Uniques are a separate thing. He kind of showed it wrong in that picture.
Soulbound items in no...
Obviously, the beta, but that was like level 20. That's very different from what is it going to be at the very end game when I'm grinding nightmare dungeons and flying through.
Have you ever heard any player say, I don't like trading? I don't want trading in Diablo 4. Never.
I mean, there's a lot of people that say they don't want trading because of JSP and things like that. So there is that. I wish they had trading, but then they just worked hard to shut down JSP and things against TOS. Because overall, trading is amazing and such an amazing piece. But when you let it be infiltrated and taken advantage of and all of this, it worsens the game. But there are people that say they don't want trading. But I think trading is such a crucial part of these games being really fun. I think as well, if you build in an SSF ladder or something like that, that's also a great way to do it all. So then you can have a nice balance, right? Like you can have people that want to trade. You can have the SSF ladder. You can have people compete with that. I think that's really nice. I think that one of the best ways as well to combat things like JSP is to build your own trading within the game that's just better. Because, for instance, Diablo 2, the reason JSP exists is because Diablo 2 trading is like really hard to do. You're just going in and out of games and, hey, do you have this? And it's like really tough to find everything you want. So if Diablo 2 built a trading platform within the game that was way better, a lot more people would just trade within the game and it would pull people away from the sites. And I think it would improve it a lot.
Let's say you find a Zod rune, the rarest rune in the entire game of Diablo 2 that is for a build like a barbarian, and you found it on a sorceress, so now it has no use to you. If this was Diablo 4, you couldn't trade it. One of the rarest items in the game, and you now have to just salvage it. Even though item drops are class-based, what if it's not for your build? Will this happen in Diablo 4? Most likely. This theory isn't absolute because we haven't experienced end game. So why does Blizzard want no trading when 98% of the Diablo community wants trading? 98%. There are many theories to this. One is Blizzard thinks this will fix real money trading. However, there will always be real money trading when trading is available in any kind of form.
This is true. And I also want to state, the way that they're currently fixing trading, I think, is actually more incentive to RMT. The reason is because right now you can only trade rares and below. If you make something into a legendary, you can't trade it anymore. So players who would make items into legendaries by putting aspects on them would use those items and then want to move to a new build or whatever it is and trade that item off, can no longer trade it. Whereas bots who go out and just farm and get a bunch of rare items can then sell those items and trade those rare items not in a unique form because they don't use them because they're the bots. So I feel like it's actually a backwards implementation that they've done where they've made it even better for bots trading. And you get penalized for using your items because then you could no longer trade it if you, of course, made it into a legendary.
No fix to RMT unless the game is completely solo self-found.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong on that,
to actually find the items yourself to complete your character. In other words, they just want you to be solo self-found. This restricts the player from having the freedom to make their own choices. Instead, they should just have a self-found league like Path of Exile.
I mean,
They're
a solo self-found
literally
league would be
forcing
great.
the player base to be solo self-found. Another theory is they are trying to appeal to a wider audience of players, which is probably World of Warcraft, where soulbound items are the pathway to endgame gear completion. The next theory is they personally think this is the best for the game in its future, regardless of community feedback. And the last theory is they think Diablo 3 was a success based on sales of 30 million copies without trading.
There's a lot of
When
theories
Diablo
right
3
here.
was released, everyone hated the game and it died. The game had 200 Twitch viewers for years. The game was completely lifeless, while Diablo 2 had 40,000 players online in 2016. And for some reason, Blizzard still seems to think that the game was a success. Diablo in the franchise is like the Beatles. It doesn't matter if the album or if the music or if the game is even good at all, it's going to sell millions of copies just because of the hype around the name. So let's talk
that's
about the
not wrong.
constant restrictions of game.
I mean, I think that's totally a fair point right there to say. If Diablo 4 did not have the Diablo name on it, did not have any of, whatever, all the backing of that, and was just a game that was being released, how many people would look at it? How many people would say this game is going to be the best game ever? I think that's totally a fair, piece to say. Obviously, having the backing of being Diablo does give it a lot more, You think you get a lot less criticism? I think you get a lot less criticism and a lot less play and a lot less care. And I think a lot of people would be like, it looks fine,
Gameplay. Diablo 4 is advertised as an open world game. The world makes you feel restricted on the places you can go because there are barriers everywhere. The dungeons are usually one pathway and it literally makes you feel trapped in the world. Diablo 2 was 10 times more open world than this, and I'm not sure why Blizzard has designed the world this way when it was supposed to be open world. There are many aspects of the game that...
he just compared a dungeon to the open world. Obviously, the open world is still open. I think that's a bad take right there. But, I'll still admit that the dungeons within Diablo 4, they improved them, but there is a lot of single pathway that you're going down, right? Which is how Diablo 3 dungeons kind of were as well, and Greater Rifts and everything. You just kind of go down the path, which I always hate. I think that's such a boring, railroaded dungeon.
Restrict you from where you really want to go and things you want to do. You can't go wherever you want because of the barriers in the open world, and you can't trade all of the items either, and aspects can only be applied to certain items. You constantly have to salvage, enchant items, extract legendaries, etc. There's always something restricting you from progressing, when instead you should just be out in the world killing stuff, not crafting constantly in the main city like World of Warcraft. These features should be choices, not requirements. And this is where Diablo 2 got something almost perfect, because there was crafting and there were ways to enchant your items and do other different types of crafting and enchanting abilities. It's just you didn't absolutely have to do it to be able to progress your character in the game. When you're completing the Diablo 4 story and questing, you can skip the cutscenes. However, you still spend hours of time hitting your escape key to skip the cutscenes. Every side quest has the same boring scene. Also, every quest is a lot of walking and...
I'm not going to disagree with him here. There's a lot of spots where you're just constantly hitting the escape key to skip every little cutscene, or impossible scenes that you can't skip, like this, where you have to talk and then you just have to wait, and then they have to tell you to stand back, and then they have to speak Horadric and all that. It's oh my god, just let me skip everything, please. It's 5 seconds? Yeah, but it's 5 seconds every single spot. It adds up. It gets real tiresome. What was his previous point?
to be able to progress your character.
Oh, right. Having to do all the things. I do think there is a small piece to say about that as well. And a little bit of it goes to the mobile game right? Let's get our paint up. You know, a little bit of it goes to the mobile game where you just have so many things to do. There's just all of the things, and then this is, you know, oh, click here and do this. And this is obviously not exactly how Diablo 4 is. But the idea is like, all right, I got to like click this and then go in and collect, you know, claim these rewards. And then I click this and I go in here and I claim these rewards. And then I click this and it opens this up and I claim these. You know, there's a lot of just like not actually like playing the game, just stuffed with things, just filler, right? And Diablo 4 felt like it had some of that in it as well, where you're going in and you're just getting a little bit of the menuing and, oh, I leveled up again. Let me go to my battle pass to collect this thing. And then just within like what he's saying, right? You need to go back and go to the potion guy and upgrade your potion now that you're level 10. And then you have to go here and do this. There's a lot of just like filler pieces that I agree. They kind of take you a little bit out from the game, and you're just having to do the in-town thing, whatever it is, whatever the UI screen is, to craft the thing or do this piece or whatever. All the worst parts of an MMO, right? Yeah, it's like maintenance, and it's, you know, like putting a potion in your belt. Kind of, but worse, because putting a potion in your belt, I can literally just be like running and then just like put the potion in my belt right there. I'm not having to have a whole screen blocking my thing and claiming things and all that. You know, putting a potion in is quite different. But yeah, I think that is a fair point. Again, I don't think it's at the crazy level, you know, of like the mobile games and things, but there is just some filler. There was definitely times when I was playing the game and I was like, all right, I don't want to have to like go back to town and go find this person just so I can do this thing because I need to upgrade that.
I don't know how many times I had to walk all the way across the map for so many quests when I could just be out there killing stuff. It feels like they are trying to make the game an open world type atmosphere similar to World of Warcraft with a action RPG spin-off that has a ton of restrictions. Rune words are not completed for the release of the game. They were a feature Blizzard announced to try to get Diablo 2 players into Diablo 4. This is basically the same thing as socketing an item with a jewel or a perfect gem. They are not rune words. You just get different effects based on the rune. The feature isn't...
Yeah, the rune words were not like... They like tried to implement them, but they just don't work very well because the game is max 2 open sockets on items, which again comes from the idea that they're trying to be more casual. They're trying to make it more console friendly, and everything is one slot, and the slots are only so big, and you know, all of this, and yeah. So the rune words just... They were trying, but they just couldn't really get it implemented well there. It was very, very generic. So they've removed them for now. I'm sure at some point in an expansion or something, they will bring rune words in their own way.
Completed, and I'm sure Blizzard will use this in an upcoming patch to gain hype. I don't think they understand the complex game mechanics for rune words because this requires a lot of testing and knowledge to be balanced properly.
As he shows Enigma, which is like... Such a rune word.
And most of the devs at Blizzard that work on Diablo games, I don't think they know anything about Diablo 2. And I also never see them ever playing the game. It just seems like they have a job and working at Blizzard is really cool, so they just like to be at Blizzard for the clout and the hype. I never seen one Blizzard employee actually play the game, so I assume they don't have much knowledge or passion Diablo game mechanics.
Wow, that's a harsh take.
That come from the other games, such as Diablo 2. This is probably why they copy and paste Diablo 3, because they don't actually understand Diablo at all. This is why the skill tree is like Path of Exile, and the rest of the game is just like World of Warcraft. I
mean, yeah, he's just going off right now. A lot of speculation there. I mean, when are you like watching the devs? Do you have a camera watching them what they play? I will definitely say, and I think again more Lost Ark. But I'll say even this within a lot of the current games and stuff. Like Last Epoch, you can see tons of like Path of Exile influence and things. Like a lot of the modern ARPGs and whatnot are really getting intertwined lately. They're just copying off each other and putting in like the same systems. And yeah, and I'm not saying that like they're not great in some ways and all of this, but it does feel like a lot of we're losing some cool creativity with certain pieces and stuff. A lot of it does feel like it's kind of just crossing over a little too much, you know. They're feeling a little too generic for me. A lot of the games are feeling a little too generic.
The spin-off. It doesn't seem like PvP is going to be completed for the release. This is impossible to balance with the current version of the game.
I'm actually really curious. PvP is like, this is a great question. Because Diablo 3 was also supposed to have PvP, and then that was a whole thing, right? We already know that you start out doing, hundreds of damage, and by the end you're already doing tens of millions of damage. This was confirmed by people that played endgame, stuff like that. And so that brings up a huge question of like, okay, trying to balance when you're getting into tens of millions of damage and stuff is really hard. And that's why Diablo 3 is like impossible to balance with all of it as well. And like obviously Diablo 2 PvP isn't perfectly balanced, but you can actually have PvP within Diablo 2 that has like it works still, I do have questions about what PvP will look like in Diablo 4. Will it just be a giant mess where people are moving too fast, spells are too all over the place? Its damage is too ridiculous. One guy is a couple levels higher and just murders everyone. I don't know. I do really wonder what it will end up looking like. But it feels like they hyped up PvP a lot, but then I haven't heard like anything about it. And there hasn't been any testing of it or show of it whatsoever. So the power creep comes from the multiplicative buckets that they've added in everywhere. So everything multiplies when you're going cross bucket now. And you have 6 buckets of all the different damage types. And so that just escalates damage like crazy.
Because my chain lightning does more damage than my actual health. If Blizzard wanted, they could balance PvP and get the game on an esports level of popularity. I just don't think they care enough for the game as much as they do World of Warcraft. I fear we won't see many major content patches because after 2 years they will make the majority of the money that there is to make from Diablo 4. I don't see Blizzard making enough money off cosmetics, battle passes for them to actually care for the game as much as they care for World of Warcraft.
Man, he really just has a hate for World of Warcraft here. I'm not sure about all that take, but I mean, I'm pretty sure Blizzard made like 7 times as much money from in-game purchases compared to game sales in their latest quarterly report or something like that. So like money within game is very high. I do think there still, of course, is the fair take question, whatever it is, which is, yeah, if this game comes out and a year from now it's not really playing well, a lot of people aren't really feeling it because it's just somehow whatever, it didn't end up like they want it to. Will they just abandon it and put it into maintenance mode? Or will they try and revitalize it, do more things? There's definitely a question around all of that.
Maybe if the game was a subscription-based game, it's just over time they won't make enough money from the game anymore. So I don't really see them continuing to develop more features and more of the end game in the future. Also, there seems to be what I call a culture flip or a new age of Diablo players that actually like Diablo 3 and even Diablo 4 game mechanics. After the release of Diablo 3, everyone hated the game, even before it was released. Also, the game died while Diablo 2, as I said, had 40,000 players online. I will say I love Diablo 4, and so far it is a wonderful game. However, everything that made the franchise unique compared to other games has been dismissed.
So he loves Diablo 4. Oh, well, there you go. That should be the title of the video. I love Diablo 4. Xtimus.
For years, and this is why there's an outrage from Diablo 2 players. All we wanted was a new game that was similar to Diablo 2 and its core game mechanics, such as rune words and end game. It's surprising
I don't even
to
know
me
if
that
that's
this
what
new
I
age of
wanted.
Diablo players tell us to go play Diablo 2 if we like it so much, and tell us we're on some kind of nostalgia trip, when everyone hated Diablo 3 to begin with. So I guess it's just a new age for Diablo.
You're saying we, but... Oh, that was it. It just ended there. Okay. I mean, I don't think he really hits on a lot of the core pieces. I feel like he's got some personal opinions. He really hates World of Warcraft. We can tell. But I'm not sure he's really, like, capitalizing or showcasing. Like, he had a couple good points, like smart loot. You know, I think is definitely a piece in there. The trading difficulties, though I don't think he went in depth enough with all of that. He needed to cook his script a little longer. I agree with that. There was definitely a lot of emotion within it, for sure, you know. And there's plenty of assumptions. And again, we have to make some assumptions based on what we've seen. We've seen the dungeons and all of this. And, you know, yeah, there is a lot of linear pieces across there. But again, he compared, like, the dungeons in D4 to the overworld in Diablo 2. So it's like, that's not a good comparison as well there, you know. So he brings up some good points. But I think he's missing some pieces. Some of the I don't want to say like evidence, because it's not like a factual evidence, but some of the like good reasoning behind it. Yeah, I respect. I'm not saying they're fake. That's nice. I was also not trying to speak for everyone. Quick video. Improving that. Yeah. And I mean, overall, I think he'll enjoy Diablo 4. I think a lot of us will enjoy Diablo 4. Again, I think the question will be, where is Diablo 4 in the later stages? A year from now, 2 years from now, is it going to hold up like Path of Exile kind of held up, right? Path of Exile built a community and then continued to grow that, continued to have these awesome expansions and all of this, and they've done a ton of great stuff with it, you know. And obviously I think they also went overboard a little bit, and, you know, they've definitely kind of lost some of the people with it, but you know, I think it has at least you can see, hey, over however many years Path of Exiles existed, 13, whatever it is, they've really done a great job in growing and having a community that's hype about it, all of this stuff. Like, yeah, they've done a great job with those pieces. They've got Path of Exile 2 coming, you know, all of this. And will Diablo 4 have that? Or will it kind of take a path of a lot of hype and then fall off and get put into a maintenance mode, where they're just kind of resetting for the ladders and all of that, and you know, it has nobody really playing or whatever. Who knows? Who knows? I think it's hard to say. They've definitely marketed the heck out of the game, almost to the point of over-marketing, where I'm a little bit like, whoa, slow down on the marketing. Like, make me believe in the game a little bit. I feel like it's presidential election, and I'm just getting hit with like ads over and over. You know, for everything with it. So I definitely do have a little concern on that. I'm like, just believe in your game. Just like make the game a good game, and know that like everything doesn't have to be right for launch. You know. So I don't think I speak for D2 players. I think I speak for myself. And I think I speak for myself as someone who's enjoyed 31,000 hours of Diablo 2. I think it's a really fun game. I like playing it. It repeats itself a lot. But, again, fun repetition is the difference to me, you know? Do I ever see myself playing 30,000 hours of Diablo 4? Based on what I've seen from beta, server slam, all of that stuff, I probably will not. And the main reason for that is just like the itemization and those pieces, I just feel like I have enough questions, concerns, all of that, you know? And I'm not trying to compare Diablo 4 to Diablo 2 either, right? I'm really trying to see it as a separate game, its own entity, and that's why I do think it will be fun to play through and all of that. But I still am honestly more comparing it to the ARPGs that exist nowadays, right? I compare it to Path of Exile, to Last Epoch, to Lost Ark, to right, to like all Wolcen, to all the games that are currently across and out there, and I think, is this bringing
Llama,
something to
you're
me?
a dad now. You aren't going to play 30k hours of any game ever again.
Yeah, that's
Even
probably
D2.
true.
Feels bad, man.
Well, maybe Llama RPG. I've heard really great things about Llama RPG coming up. ! RPG Discord. So, you know. It's maybe West. So it's hard to say, but I tried to compare it there. The biggest places I compare it to D2 are honestly like graphics, right? Like I look at here, let me get let me like show this. Right? I look at like the graphics of Diablo 2, the like look at how good the blizzard looks, and I wish I had like fire skills on this character. But like how well the spells really like blend in. Sorcerer's skills. Let me see if there's like a video.
We're going to take a look at all the abilities and skills and range. Range
right, let's just
ones.
I mean, even that, like,
single target DPS is actually pretty good. If you want to, you'll use it. You encase yourself in ice, and it does damage nearby, chills enemies nearby. And when it's done, it does a giant burst of blizzards on all overfishing in the player. There's that throw down while you're not that.
It's that one again.
To hit up to
Oh my god, show the skills.
Yes, against bosses.
He's not even showing them.
To shield enemies that will stun an enemy second.
Bro, you're
Set
killing me.
the damage you dealt to them while frozen.
Didn't show anything.
But who really cares about Sork skills? Hashtag Team Necro skills are where it's at.
Featherberries. That's the one.
Alright. Here's the whole build. Show me. Bro, these guys suck at just showing the build.
And then on bosses, we're then going to be popping
So like
the number 4, the ice blades, to do more vulnerability.
like the spells within the game
Too many mobs here, so we're just going to walk past these. But generally, blizzards,
just
frozen orb.
don't look as good. Right? The
And
ice
then
armor
basically
looks
the
lame.
rotation.
The frozen orb looks very
using
like on
ice
top
armor,
of the
you don't
environment.
necessarily have to use it in terms
The blizzard,
of,
like, and so many pieces of the game look beautiful, so it's really
Defensive.
confusing. Right? It's really confusing because so many pieces of the game actually look good. But then, like, the spells in D2R, I just feel like look so much better. I think Frost Nova is one of the worst looking spells, actually, in D2R. I have it's a Nova. Try and see what sorceresses I have. Trying to think if I have Frozen Orb on any of them. Because I think that's a great one to, like, show the difference. No. And you can disagree. That's fine. Again, this is my opinion. Hydra Orb. Hopefully you have it. Perfect. So, like, here's the Frozen Orb in Diablo 2.
Ooh, Jumper raises a good point. Blizzard wants to sell cosmetics. $5 for a better-looking frozen armor, $20 for a better-looking blizzard
It's going to give you
skin.
more mana regeneration when you
And
have
there's the
active
Frozen Orb in
boss,
Diablo 4.
the more damage. With the legendary that I've got, we will be doing more damage with a barrier active.
Here's the Ice Armor in Diablo 4. And here's your Ice Armor in Diablo 2 Resurrected. So, yeah, I mean, I just feel like, again, to me, D2R just has a much cleaner look with all of that. So there's certain pieces, like that's a comparison that I really, that's my biggest comparison, I would say. D2R, D4. I look at D4's skills and I'm like, this looks like a mobile game. Some of these skills, like what is this?
I can show you. There's an elite here.
You know?
It looks like. Here's an elite.
The only problem with
You can see how
D4 is
quickly
that
that
we
died.
have D2.
With a lightning build, that would take a few more seconds to
So.
kill. Hydra builds with the fire.
I don't know. That's my hottest take on that piece. Is I'm like, man. But yeah, maybe we'll see in the future MTX they sell for your skills and now your Frozen Orb looks amazing instead. You know? I don't think that's the greatest footage, but I just know when I was playing Sorcerer or Sorceress in Diablo 4, I was like, I don't like the look of this. These spells feel... they just don't feel like they're with the environment. And I didn't even show fire in Diablo 2, which fire, I mean, you saw a little bit with Hydra, but like fire is gorgeous in Diablo 2. It's amazing how good it looks. You know? I'll probably run Necro or Sorceress to start. I think that's what my team needs. I'm aiming at Necro. Because Esroy likes the Necro, you know. Necro's going to be slow. I mean, the Blood Mist was really fun, but I might be shifting over to Bone Necro later. I agree, Zaza. I agree. Bone Necro feels like the only Necro? Maybe. Did I talk about the hardcore race thing? I think... And again, Rod has great takes. I guess I should end my video for YouTube here. Rod has great takes, but this was not a good take. Saying if everybody's characters are deleted, then everybody's on the same foot. That's just not true. I also think the idea of having a race for first 1,000 people, but then requiring you to buy the Ultimate Edition so you can play the 4 days earlier so you can be a part of the race if you actually wanted to race, I disagree with. I think that's not a good look. That's the whole point of the race? Probably. But again, that's the point of it's like where marketing went too far. Right? Where marketing went too far and it's like, oh, let's make an awesome thing, but only for the people that paid us extra money. Try and push like a couple more people to try and buy it. Like, push it to season 1 and it's fair. But then if they push it to season 1, then the early access people that paid for the deluxe edition, they don't get that benefit. So, you know, it just brings up that question again. I don't think it's a great take from them. I think it's if they really want to save face on it, they come back around and say, we're just going to make it season 1, and that's when everybody can play. But regardless, if they keep it as is, I'm not going to go for first 1,000 or claim it if I do it and get it, because I agree. I've had advantage that other people haven't. I think it's unfair. So I'm just gonna not do that. Same as a lot of the other people. If other people who got reviews still want to do it, I think that's totally fine. But I just, yeah. Anyways, it is time for me to go and take care of my baby. So I am going to be heading off to do that. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for listening, for sharing all of your thoughts and opinions in the chat. I appreciate y'all. Mwah. You guys are the best. Don't forget to follow if you haven't already. And of course, I am making my own game called Llama RPG. We had our prototype where we were able to log into the server, move around, do some combat, get some experience, all sorts of things. That's RPG Discord right there. You can join up there for any updates as that comes along. And yeah, I'm really excited for the game. I'm very excited for that. But regardless, I'll see you guys tomorrow for some more Diablo 2. We'll be doing the Whirlwind Barbarian Part Nightmare. Yeah. And then, of course, Diablo 4 on Thursday. My channel will be enabled for the drops, so you can come in and get that as well. Peace, everybody. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.